Biology is all around us. You see it every day when you're walking around, but there's not many times when we actually stop to learn about the world that surrounds us. This term I spent a lot of time doing just that, observing, learning, and analyzing aspects of how the natural world works. And I did so all thanks to my Intro to Biology class. Over the term, we gathered information and put it all together into a portfolio, so without further ado, let me take you through what I've learned. The way this course works is that we had 9 learning objectives to study through. We created media pieces each week which coincide with different learning objectives, and this portfolio will walk through the different objectives and which media pieces I connected them to. To start off, let's talk about the science concepts outcome. In this outcome, we covered characteristics and themes of scientific knowledge. The first media piece I have for the science concepts is patterns of nature. In this piece, I explored the branching pattern in things such as leaves, trees, and branches themselves. I found that the shape of the pattern helps hold up plants by dispersing its support. This piece connects to science concepts because a consistent characteristic of nature is the patterns we can see and analyze. The next piece I have for science concepts is my data summary. I found 2 data visualizations from NASA in regards to climate change and explained what they represent. The graph on the left represents the amount of land-based ice on Antarctica per year. From the data, I gathered that the amount of ice is at a decline of 132 billion metric tons per year. The second graph is about the global average surface temperature per year. From the visualized data, I concluded that it has been increasing by 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit per decade. My data summary connects to science concepts because I looked at visual evidence of a change occurring on Earth and analyzed its cause and effect. Next, let's talk about the science skills learning objective, which is all about discovering the natural world. The first media piece is a data visualization that I created. It represents the amount of sleep that bears typically get throughout the year. As you can see, bears usually sleep the most during their hibernation state in the winter. This piece connects to science skills because it shows how I recorded the data I found and the decision-making process of how to visualize that data. Next is the organ symbiosis media piece, which includes a sketch of a rose gall and a description about what's going on. I wrote about how rose galls eat stems of plants and double as homes for larvae. This piece demonstrates my note-taking ability and science study skills I use to learn about how rose galls work. The Science Connections learning objective covers society and the scientific enterprise. The first media piece we'll be looking at is the Fruit and Seeds media piece, which is a slideshow about how flowers become fruits and seeds in the process of germination. It also talks about different kinds of fruits and seeds and their structures and characteristics. This media piece relates to Science Connections because I give examples of commercially and economically important fruits and seeds. They play heavily into our culture as people who consume and distribute the foods that come from the earth. Next is my notes media piece, where I documented my notes from the first week of lectures. My favorite page is the one where I traced portraits of early naturalists and wrote notes about them. The page is eye-catching and it allowed me to learn a lot about these people. This ties directly into the Science Connections learning objective because I wrote about the early naturalists and what they did and discovered. Let's now talk about the general biology learning objectives. First up, we have general biology concepts, which is all about describing and explaining life. My first media piece for this learning objective is my tree anatomy slideshow. In this slideshow, I explored the anatomy of trees as well as how to identify different types of trees based on leaves, branches, and overall characteristics. I also talked about how we use different types of wood and make certain kinds of products from them. It connects to the general biology concepts because it covers the structure and function of trees as well as classification and identification of different trees. Next is my flowers media piece, where I documented the anatomy of a flower, observations about different flowers around campus, and ultimately discovered my favorite flower, the mock strawberry. This piece relates to general biology concepts because I explained the complexity and organization of the anatomy of flowers and described the classification of different flowers. The general biology skills learning outcome consists of researching organisms and environments. My conifers media piece observed different types of conifers and identified them based on their leaves. It relates to general biology skills because I went out around campus to observe different conifers and made conclusions based on the patterns I saw. My pond media piece is a diagram I made of the food web and nutrient cycle in a pond. In connection to general biology skills, I did a bit of research on information about pond life and designed the research into a diagram. The General Biology Connections outcome explores nature and everyday life. Starting off, my Mammals Media Piece slideshow explores characteristics of different kinds of mammals and how to identify them by their footprints. In terms of general biology connections, this piece talks about mammals, which are a part of nature we experience every day in our pets, wildlife, and even ourselves. My safety checklist covers all the steps and procedures I need to take in order to study safely and respectfully to myself and the environment around me. It relates to general biology connections because this piece set me up for lifelong learning plans of safety and staying aware of the environment around me. The Environmental Biology Concepts learning outcome focuses on current understandings of biodiversity, ecology, and conservation biology. In a quiz answer, I described 2 active strategies of how humans are helping to save endangered species. I talked about the monitoring program, which keeps an eye on the Florida panther, and the breeding program to help raise and grow whooping cranes. This answer connects to environmental biology concepts because it explores how we are putting in initiatives to help save endangered animals on our planet. My organism care plan talks about how to properly take care of hermit crabs, which are actually pets I briefly had in my home in preschool. Relating back to environmental biology concepts, this piece demonstrates stewardship to the animals we take care of. The Environmental Biology Skills Learning Objective covers effective fieldwork and organism handling. In my 7 steps activity, I went to a parking lot near my dorm and observed a man-made patch of nature in the middle of the lot. I found a lot of trash and not any direct or indirect evidence of animal sightings. In regards to environmental biology skills, this activity taught me field techniques of observation as well as self-analyzing how I contribute to what I discovered. In a quiz answer, I wrote about what I could decipher from a sampling of plankton. I mentioned that increases in carbon dioxide can be harmful to plankton as well as any organism in the water. This piece connects to environmental biology skills because it talks about microscopic analysis from observing plankton and organism care. The last learning outcome we will look at is the Environmental Biology Connections, which is all about making media about the environment. The first piece I have is a quiz answer about the greenhouse effect and how human influence has increased the temperature of greenhouse gases. This relates to environmental biology connections because this was a way for me to write and journal about a concept I was relatively unaware of before learning about it in this course. Next is an image of notes I took about a story I found very interesting. I wrote about the event of sea stars losing their legs, the movements in place to help them, and what caused the issue in the first place. These notes tie back to environmental biology connections because it communicates about the environment, and it's an example of generational learning and how stories like these get passed on. And with that, it brings us to the end of my portfolio for Bi 101 Ecology, Conservation, and Global Change. I want to give a special thank you to Leslie Blair and Mark Lavery for putting on this course. Walking into class every day felt like a movie, and I really appreciate all of the effort you guys put into the content you make to help us learn. I learned a lot this term, and a lot of it will likely stick with me for a long time. And thank you for watching my portfolio.